I'm Emily Simpson. I'm our events director here at the Strand, where books have been loved for over 86 years. Tonight it's my pleasure to welcome some fabulous poets to our space. We have Timothy Donnelly, Adam Fitzgerald, Dorothea Lasky, and Lyn Melnick. Tim had the distinction of receiving the 2012 Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award for his newest collection, The Cloud Corporation, and was a Guggenheim Fellow in the same year. Adam's collection, The Late Parade, is newly published with W.W. Norton's historic Liveright imprint, and his poems have appeared in Bomb, A Public Space, and Conjunctions. Dorothea's poetry has been featured in The New Yorker and the Paris Review, and her three collections are Awe, Black Life, and Thunderbird. Lyn's work has appeared in Bomb, the Paris Review, and her collection, If I Should Say I Have Hope, is available through YesYes Books, and of course here tonight at the Strand. Without further ado, please welcome Tim.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thank you to Jessica Strand for putting this reading together, and thank you everybody for coming. I'm just going to read 4 poems. And get rid of my gum. And the first is called By Night with Torch and Spear. That fire at the mouth of the flare stack rising more than 300 feet above the refinery contorts as it feeds on the invisible current of methane produced by the oil's distillation process like a monster, the nonstop spasm of it lumbering upwards into the dark Newark night like a sack made of orange parachute fabric an awkward number of gorillas get it on in. I would worship it. The motion, the heat, the unapologetic knack of the element to yank the appliance plug from its outlet, filling the big blue business suite of my head with nothing but its own wordlessness and light. Not now, not knowing what I can't unknow, but back on the grasslands before we ever came to harness it, I would bow down among the seething life of that primitive interior and worship the fire, taking one bright liberty after another. Done listening to fellow passengers tweaking the fine points. Done rubbing the dead end of thinking like a spent torch against the cave's painted walls to make it burn better. As the train slows down, as the track curves around the body of water the fire reflects in, it is a form of worship. What is it in me that hasn't yet been killed with reason, habit, through long atrophy or copied so beyond its master, it parses like the last will and testament of a moth-eaten cardigan. It dumps its nice adrenaline into my system. Nights I hear the crisp steps of deer on fallen leaves and stop, or when looking up beneath Baroque snow, or when I lean over the banister along the border of a strong waterfall. All good and well. But the endless hyperactive plumage exploding from this toxic aviary, this sun of industry descended from the lightning strike, obscures its diabolism with a vaguest brightness, so that what there is to fear in it instead excites me up a biochemical peak from the far side of which my own voice, grizzled with a wisdom unknown to me in waking life, reminds me of the conjurer who grew distraught because he sensed the forces he had stirred up with his art would not be mastered by it. It rattles tomorrow's paperwork where it hangs from the branches of the ancient timber trees. It messes with my reception, whereas I do not wish my reception to be messed with. It tells me to be careful with my worship, that if this too is a resource, then they have ways to tap it. Okay, so this is a kind of goof-ass poem. I know I'm being recorded saying curses. So it's a new poem. I finished it today, and I'm not sure what's ever going to happen to it, but I just feel kind of compelled to try it out. And it's called Chemical Life. Often I think back to the 25 caged fish dropped into Snow Creek to test the toxicity of the waters that the infamous chemical company released its wastes into for decades, and how each of them, all 25, lost its equilibrium pretty much immediately, Then 3 minutes later, blood billowed from their gills like fuchsia easing from a hedgerow 4,000 miles away. In 30 seconds more, all of them had finished early with this life, like the people of Alabama, who fished and swam and drank from the great Chocoloco Creek, the lesser Snow Creek fed its chemistry into, on and on without advisory from the many who knew, the long processions shuddering in time from church to gravesite quietly as leaves across the lethal waters. So much life destroyed by the very elements thought to have given rise to it, as the energy and the phosphorus brought to Earth by meteorites that landed in pools of acids frothing at the bases of volcanoes made available the enzymes needed for what science now calls chemical life, meaning the intermediary step between inorganic rock and the Earth's first ever spontaneously formed and truly living cell, which I envision as a frosted donut without sprinkles. First living cell, what have you to say for yourself now? I see the dumbstruck circle of you spinning late at night tonight on my monitor, billions of years before language and I head to the nearby bodega for nervous cigarettes, and I'm almost struck dead by an elephant garbage truck, one in whose large bin your double might be brewing, even as it narrowly passes me by. Another take on life, this time hewn from the drizzles and perfumes of an unstoppable crapulence. But here's the thing. There is only one chance for life to start on Earth, and after that, any spontaneously formed organism novel to the planet would be consumed by its pre-existing organisms the instant it came into being. So you're something of a dignitary, first living cell, and yet my heart is heavy. Don't look at me, I imagine you say. It isn't mere life that's the problem, so much as something neither I nor my offspring ever predicted. We had big plans for life on this planet till some random event sent it in a direction we never wanted and still can't fathom. We're into birdsong as much as anyone, not so much all this willful endangerment. And look at you there, up all night and sweating. Wade into the world a little less deeply. Lie down in the shallows and let it stick its infinite leech mouths to whatever ails you, because as much as you want to fix the world, it wants to fix you more. Unload on it your carbon, your phosphorus. Your bones' calcium will be good for plant life. Ditto your potassium. Not to mention your hydrogen, when it escapes our atmosphere, might one day power a star. Malamute. When I was a dog, I pulled the sled with the other dogs, and to the crest of my ability, for never was I a snob about it. Moreover, never lazy, day into night through the cold pine forest we were bred to, and for which I came to feel love as fast as others as a blur that slowed around us at our suppers, then watched us twitch in our heavy sleep. When I was a dog, I pulled the sled with the other dogs, mile on mile convincingly. My tongue construed the forest, no condition not to drape in, identical its pinkness from my open mouth as theirs, the nylon tapes between us reinforcing sentiment, a kind relief through constant focus, but from what I failed to grasp, as did our language. When I was a dog, I pulled the sled with the other dogs who didn't know I didn't know, but that was what we were meant to be there for to begin with. Yet I could follow them who followed anyone behind us through the forest, where what seemed to know but was a shape without sufficient contour hovered, and it proved some trouble to me. When I was a dog, I pulled the sled with the other dogs, concealing my disquiet. Like a shoulder bone, the forebears said to hurry up now, bury. But everywhere the dirt rebuffed my larger purpose. A fortitude from all the earth had frozen up against me, the paws of whom had brought me nowhere but to shame, to let it drop for another mouth. When I was a dog, I pulled the sled with the other dogs the way a roof collapses constantly, and even as the wind must always push, or it isn't wind, it's air, and I was air that had come to think of it. In some trouble to me, the others felt no twitch of, or if they did, our language failed what must have been its purpose, or I won't soon be a dog again. And the last of the poems I'm going to read is called Traveler. I'm afraid that things might be out of sequence. Pardon me for a moment. Yeah, we're good, we're good. Okay, it's a little bit longer. And this is a poem that I wrote with two things kind of in the back of my mind. One was time travel, and the other was my sense that I'm gonna, water. Lasting sense I've had since this place is this is nice. Nice lectern. I don't want to say that I don't belong here, but I mean the sense that I am meant to sort of watch how people act, to try to understand what it is we are and what we're trying to do here on the planet. Traveler, not here. Traveler. Admittedly, there have been times, as after antihistamines and a lager at the airport bar, when I can make like I belong here, minding my own carry-on behind me like the nonchalant, buoyed through a mount in cheer or cheerfulness I can't call false, or can, but just plain don't. My fixity dissolving like some paper boat on blue carpet scrolling down the gate and aisle, shoulders brushed to others gently, neighbor-like, and often, and as if I hadn't noticed, but I do. It is my task. A sudden flash of what might happen when it did, but days ago, and then the rope of calm around my neck again. I settle in my seat, a window in the back, and pray to what I pay for, which is an empty sky, or else a cloud in what appears to be the center of the sky, to feel the fade of what I only recently eased into. This lack of history between us making it all the easier. I think I hadn't expected life to be kind to me, not in light of the pounding of it. So I must have thought I could trick it, lead it into thinking I wasn't really there. Later on, I think I changed my mind, but by then it was too late. Gone forward, pulling it off, but awkwardly, timed as if time's artichoke had wept in front of me in the white kitchen, or on a pond on which intoned a lotus, then a moon, greased in plenitude, up to and including, then all its little hands, which knit their life work out of hours, days, centuries unstuck like yellow vinyl from the tabletop, the noise of it so commonplace we didn't notice it, or when we did, we let it pass by tacitly as nails until all the landscapes they held up were taken into custody, and now it can't be heard again. Or say the flatness of the tabletop were the known universe, all of it, and I'm just a random smirch residing in the northeast corner, comparable to the other smirches, nothing special, until I vanish from this flatness into another layer of it, into depth. We might think of it as traveling under the table, but the smirches who only experience flatness know no under. They only know that I was there and then I wasn't. And when I resurface in an instant somewhere in the south, it's still just an instant to me, but to them who are nowhere to be found, it was an instant 300 years in the past. White birches lean through a mist like plastic drinking straws. The same kind of tribesman from Papua New Guinea once drove through the hole in his septum in lieu of the traditional wooden spoke or bone. The anthropologist in the back of the room cried. She had seen the documentary many times before, but still cried. She sensed in this image the collapse of a culture, its unstoppable tumbling into the corporate fast food abyss. I could see this. At the same time, I couldn't look up into his face and make myself see anything less or more than a person, one with the capacity to choose or choose not to do what he had done. I knew I had to be wrong. I knew I should want him not to choose what he possibly only appeared to have chosen, meaning external forces might have compelled him to choose the straw instead of conventional materials. But I couldn't distinguish between wanting this and wanting to preserve him in time like an object, even if to do so meant denying him his ability to choose, permitting him only to do to his face what left Baltimore comfortable. Anyone moves through days less than completely, the washing of dishes, start to finish, water half scalding the hands so the feet don't remember events that the land underneath them supported, a hope for gain so consistent in the humus it becomes for us an unavoidable drink, the whole crow family chuffing overhead as we trust our taproots to skirt the bad aquifer. Anyone oftener in the soft-scented borders abuzz beside museum doors will anchor thoughts elsewhere than in insects on whose loud labor we depend unendingly. As for me, I like to think of myself as able to function at a certain level, equipped to walk among a company of bees at ease with my place in an ancient relation, a live participant in a pattern whose longevity is a thing of beauty, admiring our symbiosis in Sunday sun as an abstract love with benefits. But then I think we'd cloud them in a stink of toxins if they didn't pollinate the fruit we ate or vomit honey, and they don't think of us at all. They're too busy, or aren't equipped to, or don't see the point, if there is any. Half aware in the dark air above New York, a common swift, known to doze in flight the way a dolphin does through the sea, one hemisphere of its brain set to slow-wave sleep while the other maintains vigilance, the inner eye of us widening as it beams back and forth godlike across the soft office floor of our experience, the inner and outer divisions of it parted by a cleft that looks from this height like nothing but a paper cut. I drop in on red activity, filed in the fourth quadrant outer division, labyrinth of mismanagement as far as the eye can see. Its index cards alone the size of antlers on Irish elk, which is to say, so large they prevent successful completion of the normal business of life, I've heard it said, or else it was just some idea I had once about futility in a bathtub. But when I reach out to grab the file, having been lowered down to the airspace just above it, the antiquated suspension system up and reverses, hauling me backward through the element I belong to, torn as if from the hand that would spare me the burden of remembering. Nothing to be afraid of, but nothing now. A light-absorbing liquid tucked behind a dam, constantly wanting to unknit itself, thinking to fail by plan might be better than to succeed for a stretch through violent worry, only to fail in time anyway. You sat beside me on a green chair, bird-like, fidgeting in your girlhood as we read together from a magazine, facts about the lives of honeybees, nothing to be afraid of. To generate, on average, a single pound of honey, a colony has to draw nectar from 2 million flowers, or enough red roses to send a dozen red roses to every resident of Columbia, Missouri. And to visit all those flowers, the colony has to fly, collectively, 50,000 miles, over 1/5 the distance from the Earth to the moon, which holds our thoughts in place if we have nowhere else to place them, as when we read the average worker bee in all its lifetime will only produce 1/12 a teaspoon of honey, meaning that I have stirred the life work of a dozen bees into my teacup thoughtlessly, a devourer of life works. This present only one example, I turned my head away. Awake again in underbrush, scrub pine and sassafras, an earth beneath my hooved feet, elastic with its mosses. I walk out to the human clearing, late winter under a surplus of stars. Gently, neighbor-like, my animal ear upheld against the wigwam, the stripped bark sides of it like the surface of a rumored planet, discernible at last in the late winter sky that appears, as noted, invested with more stars than necessary, although necessity would seem to have no place in the matter, and it must be I who has imported it. In the firelight, the colonist feeds the dying Sachem fruit preserves with a blunt English knife, nursing him back to health. And it's my task to determine, through the tension of the wigwam, whether he performs this kindness out of love, strategy, or else some mixture of the two. And if this last, I am asked to determine whether the two feelings stay distinct in the mixture, or if they fuse, and if the latter, what known apparatus might best take the measure, or what new one might we devise? And is it love strategy then, or strategy love? Is one half always stronger, or is it not like that at all? When I fly back to where I'm from, or feel I must be, will I be thought a failure to the others there, because I am, but only in the strict sense, having failed to accomplish what I felt I had been asked to, which was to undertake what can't in fact be done, not the way we had been made to think we might be able to. That was our mistake, if we were more than one. If not, then it was mine. I worry that I won't be able, in the strict sense, to make the others see the beauty of it, all of it, which I admit I can only see in part, even after lifelong travels. And then I think that must be what they want, for me to return incapable, brokener, insisting on the beauty of what can't be understood, not the way we thought. And they, if more than one, will welcome me, nodding in time like the holy entities on a diptych. And if otherwise, I will be there to be calm myself and to be the ship I wait for. And the ocean will be ocean no matter how I cross it. And late winter sky will still be sky until there's no ship left to wait for. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tim. Up next, we have Adam Fitzgerald.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to Emily and Jessica Strand for setting it up at the Strand. I'm going to read 6 poems, and my mind's a little distracted tonight because I'm thinking about all these things going on in my life, as you do. And I was thinking about how often, when you're at a poetry reading, or at least I am, your mind can wander. You could be your favorite poet in the history of the world reading at the podium, like the 3 to my left. And your mind, inevitably wanders sometimes. And I was thinking that this is maybe one of the benefits, actually, of poetry, that it kind of encourages. I'm suddenly giving a lecture. I have to be honest, I love podiums. Ever since I was a child, I wanted a podium everywhere I went. Anyway, the rest of the reading is going to be pretty depressing. But I feel like poetry is maybe the one of the few activities I know about, especially in literature, that encourages you to wander, whether you're writing it, listening to it, or talking about something else. And as a way of shutting up, I just wanted to oddly, or maybe appropriately, read this quote that James Tate said in an interview once that is really on my mind tonight. So someone was asking him for the Paris Review, why are you so funny all the time, or something like this, right? And he says, I don't know. Most people don't have a sense of humor in the first place. So if they find themselves laughing at the end of an experience, they're almost distrustful of themselves, like, what happened to me? Today, for instance, on the tragedy side, we could be easily talking about the hideous effects of Hurricane Katrina or New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, or we could be talking about the Iraq War. But we can go out tonight and hear a great jazz band. We could spend a night with friends, laughing and drinking and toasting and saying how wonderful life is. Simultaneously, we all know that we're enshrouded in tragedy, lies, and all kinds of evil, torture, for God's sake, and heaps of evil beyond what we can contemplate. And yet life is wonderful to those of us who haven't been directly affected. So we are walking around balancing the two all the time. I, for one, am not giving in. I am not going to walk around in tears all day. I still want to have a good day if I can. So, making of that what you will, I wanted to just read 6 poems from my book. The first poem is called The War We're Fighting Now. There's this big war being fought now, and it's being fought without you. I can't tell you who's fighting or what they fight for, but fight they do, lilac covering their foreheads. Their plan is plain song, their uniforms a kind of lattice garb they put one leg through at a time, more delicate than bomb defusal, which brings me back to the topic of hoarfrost and the stories foretold about such people, the perverse difference between them. A town dreams itself along a river. Boys and girls play with a poundage of horse meat. Grasses bend and quilt atop flowering ditch, and soon a mountain arises until all bets are off. Old garters hang from linden trees, fuzz spills from erect flowers. We decided to daydream around what was left of the courtyard. The charred stumps were all in season then. The light had the stoical quality of shingled brick. In each window, you saw no one sleeping, no one scratching themselves, no one listening to the radio about a throng of para-skiers who wetted themselves along Cyan Lake. Down from the clustered ridge, some strolled out and observed the steel petal graves covered in nosegays and eelskin. Forget-me-nots from a recent skirmish lay atop moistened moss and emptied gas canisters. Little wooden men that cried real tears stuck out of the topsoil, musked with dew and dust, and still glistening shrapnel bits probably come from the toppled embankment over yonder. For what felt like years, we reminisced how people ever let their branches drift so far into one another's yards. Inside the split-level homes, ringtones still rung, and memories of cod deliveries hung like fire the quaint air. My father's people were a fisher people. They lived in a Tabasco-sized world. More dead persons are arriving back from the local fair now. Little can be told of what will become of them, though some have perfect tongues, and that's nothing to sneeze at. Having someone to share things with in the makeshift hayloft of a suspended carousel. Forget the stars. Nanny outfits and monster trucks preoccupy us. Other ideas, intangible as sapphire, like this abominable war soon to begin again. This next poem I'm going to read is called Mountain Story. You were living in a thimble situated by a coast that didn't have a sea. You fixated on the idea of toast, a purely epistemological pleasure. It felt riveting, a bright spectacle of lashes left out on a ledge. Soon, invasive eyes of another commenting dimension became the voice of your novel, the tear-sleeted sheet of feeling more, dealing less, the length of a decor you could peer into for the shortest time, a passage like a length of loose knots found soft to touch, almost fitted, older than theater, being entire and brittle as the heroes of the possible. Chance had its narration in your life, the way our story continually evolves against iterations, Germanic in origin, infecting, ruminatory, perhaps for a sweet morsel that still dinted along a bedpost, sometimes sanctioned in the sleevelessness that besets us best. What do you think of this postcard email? In an op-ed I penned sometime in the mid-'80s, I decreed I would never stanchion myself in either tether true enough to feel elected to yet another altered ego, the construction of a lauded poise, the 1,000 extras that dilly-dallied with swaggering polity. Just then you leaned from my dream soup, describing the detail as if it was your own conservative work week. Epicene, agile, stupendously frowned upon but lifted up. Akin. Hooplets, ceilings with oatmeal plushy frames, orchid tube socks with florid handlebars. Lovely and sedentary, we said, though better to grimace, puerile as freedom in the can-opened night with its barbaric embrace. Oh, for we supposed our love will be as love, a scimitar. This next poem is called The Dialogue. I don't know who it's a dialogue between. Actually can't remember why I called it The Dialogue, but I liked it. I still like it. The Dialogue. The moon drops behind a stone field. The dark listens. Pearl is the cricket and bandaged street where grass quickens. A mild organ has started up. Dews thresh crib springs. And I think of the mild times, erased in department stores, beside a blank figure, starving under a painting of longshoremen. Our words spoil the sprinkled weeds high and curling in the corded night. Meanwhile, you slumber in the gibbous moon, or whatever's left of it, filibustering among furled wings of lazy stars. What was our job? Oh, right. to clean the dreaming warehouse, to arrest ambition, to score the aptitude of others, figuring destiny out of women. One lingers alone in the bottle-shaped alcove, another stacks arms in cauliflower crates, and still timidity comes from months to 24 years, suddenly one day, or so the adage goes, as in a Carpathian tableau of sisters, light shed within a storm. The message is to embrace the blossoming obstacle. So I wait here, examining merits, fiddling with a corsage when not skulking nor noticing wrangled bicycles. Like any talk, the mood must be around the message to properly convey itself. There is reserve for the sun now. Be still. The thick wind will jerk free from the ward of our talk. Look at what happens without much walking. It's extraordinary. It is extraordinary. Just two more poems. Sorry. This poem is called Rock, and it's kind of cool because I printed it I printed it sideways in every copy of my book. It's based off a photograph of someone I knew and loved. Rock. I'm somewhat unconvinced by the monumentality of it all, the parable of horn and cornerstone, when what was meant was merely rock, stones and rock-piled troughs blasted by the lime of the wind, slabs like a granite sponge of sea earth, a heaped shaping of whatever is that cannot move. From the vantage of these mounds of sky and isles of blue Aruban bright, there are recondite, meekless, undisturbed sediments, tough, black rock, uplifted hill of pebble-chafed crags and chasms, decibels of what, really? Beautiful shore waste, barren coasted balm, and beside the beachside are ruins of something, light essays, grass is absent, weed which would have to cut stone is not here, not in this position of sun, balking air, other leagues of monotone, and on the bushless, leaveless rock, atop igneous agglomerations, sturdy and unsturdy stone, is you, young still. The sun tags your yellow shirt in the white blue, so you stand as you stood. You do not move. And finally, I'm going to read a poem called To a Shepherd, which is for a friend of mine also. I write lots of poems for friends. And maybe one day for some other friends. You done? Wouldn't it be great to see poets get into a play? You'd really like that. Excuse me, I'm reading here. All right. Now that okay, no, I'm not going to say that. This is my final poem. Okay. You do know me. All right. To a Shepherd. May you have rings of coral groves and all the bread that proves man does not live on love alone. May the starkness of inhuman instruments be yours, tempering a passageway through this ordinary mountain range where the mountain door dwells. In it opens all the new and old world problems. Preferably, there will be respite. Civilization's slop, its grand mulberry, a withering spa by the sea. May you know sprightly pickled strings that throb like gentle adversaries underneath encroaching sighs, with soft, sweet splashes of blood matter and ground matter, smooth, untimbered song. For always in my registering of life, someone else's, I come to a nestled ridge below a city-gridded view and dabble in thoughts that others poach unbeknownst to less literal things, like who just died. So a vague ceremony bobbles in my brain. May you have chocolates in muffled form. May you feel ecstatic and hollow-eyed for once, as you plead for a micro-style of fleet-footed driving among hills, beeping a sheep-dispersing horn, checking every so often to see who's written, who's marred or married, which season ululates its high temple prayer all alone. May the garrets and flower slums contain ink and silk to last a war or two. May brute force lacking its little stupidities be like the little rain. May your shirred head still be full with sleep. Or, as the wind rips its fuzz mane on rivers and wagons a far way off, wrapping itself into a golden ball, may you always have an elsewhere to hurry to, wave-like, uncurfewed passing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. We do have copies of The Late Parade, which is freshly debuted this month, available over at the Rare Desk. And up next, please welcome the lovely Dorothea Lasky.
Thank you. I appreciate that lovely addition. Thank you. Thank you to Emily and Jessica for having us here, and it's so great to read with Lynn and Timothy and Adam. And I just wanted to do a shout out. Adam got me these bracelets for this reading, so thank you. It's very sweet. And because of that, I'm going to start with a poem for Adam. It's called To Be the Thing. To be the name uttered, but not to have the burden to be the name said, but not heard, to not breathe anymore, to be the thing being breathed, to not be about to die, to be already dead, to not have to disappoint, to not have the burden of being late or punctual, to not eat, to not have to eat, to not feel anything, to not be the one whose affect is criticized, to not pick up the fallen over boxes, to be everywhere but the boxes are plates, to not break the plates, to be beyond breaking, to have been broken, to not bear the burden of not being present, to not have to feel the pain of being hurt, to have transferred that pain over so that hurt is only part of the imagination, and the imagination is everywhere, is every color. To not contain color, to be color, to not make sound, to be sound, to not have language, to echo, to plan language, to be the stream of words, to not be sad for, to not have those be sad for, to not eat alone, to not fuck those who do not find your corpse attractive, to not fuck or stuff, to be ashes and non-placed, not displaced, but to not be in any place, to enter the ocean on not a whim, but a physical force, where there is no center, where there is no safety. There never was. There was never any anger. There was never anything to look at. I never looked at anything. I just went and walked. I tried to love, but love is hopeless, and I have lost all hope. So bleak I am beyond what might be considered low. There is no low nor high, space or time. I have gone away from that which is uttered. I have not burdened to be spoken of or spoken for, to croak every day to the livelong bog. I do not speak a thing. I exist. No, I don't. I never did. And you may have, but I never did. And you may have called out for me, but I was already gone, and I am already there. That which you speak of, I am already spoken for. In a world of light and ashes, they all call my name. They have waited for me, and now I know I was always already there with them. And I sometimes forget about this particular poem, but I was talking to Timothy the other day, and I remembered it, and it was a poem that I wrote based on a premonition. So I thought I would read it in the spirit of premonitions, although in this case this wasn't a good one, but it's important to have them regardless. Anyway, but this poem is called Misunderstood. I have come here today to say goodbye to my father. I feel somewhat understood and yet misunderstood. I have drunk cool water under a large palm tree leaf and now feel cool. I am not nervous anymore. Whatever death is, I am not nervous about it. It wasn't what we meant when we first described pain. I just had a dream that a woman's face was blown apart by a plane crash. One side was normal, her normal face. The other side was cut into so that the muscle flapped. I saw the plane crash happen in my dream right after I had had my usual dreams about betrayal. And as usual, the whole thing was off. It was not death I was after, nor dreams. What is it in my words that makes people think I care so much about dreams? What is it in myself that makes me think I care so much about dreams? I don't care about dreams. I care about this world. What is it about this world that insists on making me feel so alone, so separate from it? When I drink a cool glass of water, why do I feel so cool inside, in a way that is not representative of the outside world? What is it that when I am feverish, the rest of the world is not hot? What is it about this room that makes me write a poem, and what is not a poem when I am out of it? People come and go. There are many ways men and women are taught to think about the world. I favor a world of fans that push the air below you at a breakneck pace. In my dream, I saw a face that was calm in not knowing it was blown apart. But instead of working against the odd feelings I have of being so separate from you, I will be calm now in knowing we will never conjoin. I will think instead that yoking is all there is left to do. I will think instead of clouds and mountains and put them in poems, not dreams. I will think of cool water that has some other sort of principle in order to make me aware of my separateness. I will not think of love. Love is something that is too confusing for understanding what is miscommunicated time and time again. In this world, I will not think of being born, which is too messy, a language or colors that dot the landscape with emotions that I don't have the space nor time anymore to feel. Or beach or bed, I won't feel any of it. When I go to sleep, I will wash linens and beans through the glow of an unearthly sun. Will it be a spirit that I will encounter then? Yes, but it will be a new spirit instead that I will make myself, a rational spirit, a spirit who is always sure it knows and feels the land, a spirit who is not human but has large arms that I will walk along and on top of and will not be sad anymore in their uncaring. And this next poem is called The Enemy. The enemy makes an enemy of another person because the enemy is within her. I screamed, I hollered. I cannot make the snake get from within me. He screamed, he hollered. He wanted the enemy out. She screamed, she hollered. She wanted the enemy out of the house. She wanted to destroy what the enemy had. The other person is not the enemy. When you want to destroy the enemy, you must realize that you are the enemy. I want everyone to like me. It is because I am the enemy. The enemy only wants to self-destruct in order to kill the enemy. I only want to make a prison out of this home to keep the enemy out, but it is really to keep the enemy within borders, except that the borders are within the borders. There is no air that flows through my lungs that has not been processed by the enemy's air. There is no pure air that has not been made into another air, which would be that of the enemy's. Where did he go? Did he go to the enemy? Did he dissolve into the enemy? I wrote poem after poem about him. I had a dream and then another. Was the dream what the enemy put in? Was the enemy trying to make my air roll over into his place by tempting me with the dream? Did the snake dance around in place and make the enemy so that I would never know? The enemy is within me, but within him. Do I want to murder the enemy so that I don't want to murder myself? When I murder the enemy, I do also murder myself. Did the enemy make pain so that I would distinguish my own enemy from yours? Whatever, I want to leap and walk. I want to walk boundless. Whatever, I want solar chaos. I am sick, I want health. I want the flowers to be made sinister with air from the enemy. The flowers in their red bell heads were always the enemy. Put the enemy on your table now, children, lovers, friends. Decorate your room with the enemy's tulips. The enemy will brighten the room. And I'm just going to end with one last poem that happens to be 40 pages. So, just kidding. Just 40 this time. And it's called To Dream. I was living but to wake into the dream, to sleep and not sleep, and to not make anything, but a world that was always a dream, so that I never knew what it was to be alive. What is living but fear? Orange couch and drink with bitters, water too and leavened animal, are what the world wants. My eyes do not make, whatever color they are. Still song and breath are there in dreams too, and people coming to your aid. And when I was sorry in my dream, it was part of this one, that I felt such remorse for things I did not know or could not. And green cockatoo that landed in a hazy nightmare, were its eyes sullen or surprised, when I took my hand from behind the bed and held the pickaxe, sliced him in half, and soldered to one half part of a man, and to the other my soul, which was dead by then, and an offering. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dorothea. You know, from my seat over there, I was admiring what you did with the cover of your Thunderbird copy. It reminds me of one of those. Reminds me of one of those Penguin classic editions they have out now, where you can design the cover yourself. Anyway, yeah, you can just buy a copy over this way, and she'll do a custom drawing for you on your cover. Up next, we have Lyn Melnick, and If I Should Say I Have Hope is available over at our desk. So please welcome Lyn.
This room is kind of daunting. I'm going to read some poems from the book, and then I'm going to read some new poems. And you can hear me, right? Yes? Okay. I'm going to start with a poem called, most of my poems are about California, or specifically Los Angeles. This one very much so. It's called That's Not Funny, You Clowns Don't Make Me Laugh. The woman in the grocery store on Sunset stopped me in the produce, her claws about my shoulders, to warn me that I might be an angel, to bless me on behalf of her God, on behalf of the lady who bleached her hair past the point hair can withstand, so each strand became a defiance of her very God, and her outsized lips could only up and down, until what we think of as prophecy was merely opening wide to say, ah. I took my remains and broke free, my skin loose as I ran. Meanwhile, the butcher I'm dancing with refuses to change my face, and the dye that spilled on the floor, the kind of red your mother warned you about, but no one warned me. I drank it straight, or hadn't you heard? Lately, it seems, plastic surgeons are murdered far more frequently than your more interior doctors. How have I missed that crazy little thing called conversion when I could have called it that? The plastic surgeons scalpel their tombstones. It's not that they wanted to die. They only wished to right the wrong bodies. Was the cause perfection? Whose isn't? But everyone's face is falling, and I don't want the circus come to town, whether I'm the circus or the town. This next poem is called Lagoon. When I was 15, tight and brash in love, I read the Brontes and the Weeklies each night after work and before you, whose thirst and ribs astounded. You would be reading something by Bukowski, something about a woman who maybe fucked rosebuds and flinched. You brought me a flower from a package weak with flowers from the Fill Station Food Mart, but I would not let you put it inside me, what with my head of voices and dazzled house calls, what with the smell of hot dogs and gas all over that rose. But that isn't possible. No, but is this? I had chosen you in brown rooms, in laundries, chosen you self-sewn, best, but do not think of you often. Still, I find myself here, and the voices find me, again recounting splinters. Is this what you did? Yes, I waded in head smut and sand. You brought me, bit and dreary, into what you named lagoon, but was mostly rainwater. Yes, I knew better then. Yes, I didn't. Is this what you did? Meaning, you did this. The next poem takes its title from Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons. It's called A Description is Not a Birthday. The gong I ring rings riddled with helium and exhaustion, swings me heavenward to prick a cloud turned to glue. It's true. The desert that housed me bewitched my eyes for anything past their own tint. Where I come from, people seek to levitate, but I could not cross my own body. Put me in an empty room, and it's an empty room. And when I finally rose, I hit the glass so hard, blood striped my face, and I swallowed it hard just to stay alive. Sorry, these aren't very fun. Yeah, it's good times. This next one's called Poem for a Daughter. Here's a dust bowl drenched in eucalyptus in the middle of nowhere where I've been some dozen times. Here's a fire hydrant, brilliant, swallowed by the shrunken brush. I hug it like it loves me, lick it like it's mine. I'm itching and aching and bored. I need you to be born. Make new what was never new. Make it rain. I'm killing bees with my bare hands. I've ridden all the stable horses. When I use a canteen, I love the word canteen. I have lived on earth for 31 years now. At 12, my legs gave on the bend. At 20, I held a posy so close I hated it, panicked, gave it away to ghosts. Today, you are inside me, promising, swelling us. What kind of miracle sitting down would be? On the next hill, there's a movie set or a pep rally. It's hard to tell in the shimmering heat. It's all tumbled down menacing, maybe a clothesline. Windbreak branches ornament with intent, litter the ground with their gum. We aren't native to this land. It's time to plant what is. It's time to go home. I'm going to read one more poem from the book, and then I'll read a few new poems. I'm going to read a poem called Wallflower, which was sort of based off a painting by Paul Klee, and it's also the last poem in the book. Wallflower. It used to be that I was the prize for stalking shadows, for keeping your trap shut. I'd paint a corner to set myself in, round that corner, smash a corner to see what sprung up next. When I knew you loved me, you let me stay the night. If I were you, I'd erect a staircase and I'd climb stone by stone just to escape myself. Believe me, I've tried, but you wanted me with you, and I get it now. The fronds are grooving on their flamingo stalks. They're all we like about what we call California. Here's our world then, a dawn in the distance. If you had told me, when I could speak only in whispers, that the light hitting the sickly coral of the beach hotels could travel further inland and all the way east to find me, this spot of a girl, grayer and gray and pink, I might have hastened from my ambush, angling upward to the moon, black and gravitational, upending the illuminated trappings we cannot live in this life without. And then I got some new ones here. I've been writing these landscape poems, but I'm not really much of a nature person, but I'm trying. And so this is the newest one that I've written, and this I'm just going to bore you with one. This one's called Landscape with Riffraff and Poison. This morning, libertines peer from frosted glass because they want to learn how I triumph. So I am going to confess this once, and then I am going to confess it again in different ways I won't admit to, but never mind. This won't be the last time I let the riffraff envenom my body while they pretend to be heroic. This won't be the first time I faint against a building where the weeds escape the cracks into some kind of suffocating, mangled abandon. Slumped against the sunlit stucco, I fail to keep my wits about me in a choke of triggers. I down this dandelion poison because the promise pitches a floral danger I could live inside. I didn't emerge well-trained into this savage vista because all the houseplants were succulent, and while anyone could witness rot writ all over my blighted arrangement, no one stepped in. This next poem I wrote after going to Target at like holiday time, and it's just like a bad idea for me anyway, and I just get really overwhelmed and have like a major tantrum, and it's kind of embarrassing. So this one is called Poem Entering the Apple Valley Target. Into the fluorescent rough country, headlong into bulks of flesh, impatient to outspend me, and who wouldn't fold real quick under the weight of America's sales and specials? I believed, then I didn't, that I was different than I am in my own skin, in this infinity mirror, instructed such to seduce myself, to go on. I am sorry about the space I take up, about the panic running around my aspect and my hunger, although it's nothing these racks of acrylic winter apparatus won't dazzle out of my head. I'll take several. I'll take fistfuls. I'll tuck it into my mouth at night to keep me quiet. And I'm going to read one more. And I wrote this poem after I went to read from the book in Los Angeles, and that was a mistake. So the other day I read and I introduced this poem, and I said that like I didn't enjoy growing up in Los Angeles, and this woman heckled me, and she's like, "I loved it." I was like, "Well, it was really weird." It was great for her, but didn't work out for me. I'm still traumatized by that. This one's called Distress Call from the City of My Youth. Punks like to tell me they have feelings while marching their crude revolution toward my corner of Sunset, but I am worn out of feelings, so I try again to escape this lawless hunt by fucking the archfiend blind on the back streets because I don't understand how to deserve anything or how misery and sunlight inhabit the same vibration in my skin. Dear you on the other end of the line, I imagine how tenderly you'd peel the crime from what I left exposed, but my formative years were mostly alleyways and men being brutish, so I'm confused about a lot of things, like I crossed this burning blacktop for you when I momentarily thought if I confessed how long I've been open season, slaughtering season, you might shoulder me past city limits alive. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. On behalf of the Strand, myself, and Jessica Strand, thank you, Adam, Tim, Dorothea, and Lynn for being here this evening. Again, copies of their books are available over at the Rare Desk, so you should all check them out on your way towards the door. And thank you all for being here this evening. Bye.